Well, how's everybody doing today? It's Ken Haedrich, Dean of the Pie Academy, and I've been really looking forward to doing this live Facebook event. I thought we would do it on YouTube, but I decided, since I've never done a Facebook event before, that this would be a good one to do on Facebook. While I'm thinking about it, would somebody out there please drop a comment in the comment box below, so I know you can hear me and that I sound good and I'm not maybe not facing this way like I was earlier in the week when I was doing some test runs. My wife Bev is on the other side of the camera. Maybe she can tell me if anyone is commenting, saying hi or anything like that. That would be great. No, nobody yet. Okay. Anyway, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how you can work smarter instead of harder making your pie pastries. This is a great time of year to be doing this because we're coming up on the summer pie season. You're going to want to be making at least 1-2 pies a week. So it'd be great to have some hacks, or they used to call them tips and tricks and secrets, but nowadays everyone calls them hacks. So I thought it'd be great to talk about some hacks that you can use to consolidate your moves and make your pie making, or in particular your pie pastry making, go faster and smoother. So let's dive right in and talk about that. The first thing I want to talk about to make your pie making go faster is hack number 1, ditch the bag. So what do I mean by ditch the bag? Well, what I'm talking about is ditching the flour bag. Now, flour bags are great. It's a wonderful thing to, sell flour in. It's very elegant. They can put their advertising all over here. But it really doesn't do you much good when you get home and you want to bake, because it's not the ideal container. For one thing, bags rip. I can't tell you how many times I've put a bag away and only to go back and discover that it's ripped. There's flour everywhere. Another problem with bags is especially the further you go down into the bag, the harder it is to get the flour out and to measure it. So it's got a lot of problems with it. So what I've been doing for years is, when I get my flour home and I want to store it, I'll put it into a bin like this one here. Now, this bin measures probably about 14 inches by about 9 inches wide and probably 5 inches deep. And it's the perfect size for keeping your flour. It holds 5 pounds of flour. And the most important thing to know about this setup is that let me find my measuring cup here. It allows you to measure your flour accurately. The problem with the bag is a lot of people just sort of reach down in with the cup and they sort of cram as much flour in there as they can. And you come up with an inaccurate measurement for your flour. The way you're supposed to measure flour, you can do with your handy bin here. So what you do is you fluff your flour a little bit like so, and then you sort of drop it into the cup. That's the correct way to measure flour. I just give it 1 little tap, 2 little taps, and then level off the top. And that's all there is to it. That's the correct way to measure flour. So getting your flour out of the bag and into the bin is really the way to ensure that you're going to get a correct measurement. Hack number 2. Now, while you're measuring flour or you're measuring anything, why not measure in multiples? In other words, measure as if you're going to be making a lot of pies, and do it all at one time. So in other words, every time you're going to make a pie, do you really want to get the flour out and your cornstarch and your salt to make your dry mixture? Well, that gets old after a while. So what I like to do is take and consolidate that step by doing multiple measures of the dry ingredients at the same time. So that way, this is my cabinet, but let's make believe it's my refrigerator right now. So that way I can go into my refrigerator and I can take out exactly what I need. And there's just a little bit of a not only does it save time because you're not having to get the flour out every time you want to make a pie, but there's also there's a psychological advantage to looking into your freezer or your refrigerator and seeing these little bags there. It just makes it removes one of the mental obstacles that we sometimes have to making something. So if you go into your refrigerator, your freezer, you see these nicely measured bags ahead of time, it just makes it that much easier to go ahead and make your pie and take those first steps. Now the same is true for your fat. Instead of just measuring your dry ingredients and have those standing by, do it with your fat as well. And by the way, mark your bags. I put a date on here. The date's not really necessary because if you're going to put these things in the refrigerator or the freezer, the flour, the dry mixture is going to last forever. But I just have a habit of marking up everything that goes in my freezer. So this one, and this way too, if you make different types of doughs, you know what they are. Say this one would be a whole wheat dough. This one here would be your go-to dough. And that way you know exactly what you're reaching in for. So keep that in mind. Always measure for multiple pies rather than just one pie. So we've measured so let's say that we've measured our dry ingredients, we've measured our fat. You may be asking, well, why couldn't you just combine the two in a bag? And actually you can. You could combine, take one of these bags, and you could add your fat directly to it, and that would make it easy to just take the whole thing out of the refrigerator and put it right in your food processor, which is the next hack we're going to talk about. So I'm an old school baker. I understand the allure and why a lot of people like to make pie pastry by hand. There's just something very simple and therapeutic about it. So I understand, but a long time ago I came to appreciate just what a valuable time-saving and labor-saving tool that the food processor was. So hack number 3 is embrace the food processor. It's really going to save you a lot of time. Whenever I do a pie making demonstration, or we have one of our pie getaways down in Charleston, we have 2 coming up this fall in New England that you've probably heard about. One of the first things I'll do is I'll ask the people in attendance how many people use the food processor on a regular basis to make pie dough. And I'm always surprised at how few people it is. It's usually no more than about 25 or 30%. And I always encourage people to get to know your food processor and use it for making dough because it's so simple. Another thing I like about it is there are a lot of people out there who have arthritis or limited, movement with your hands, and it's just it can be difficult. When you make pie dough by hand, there's this constant cutting, movement that you have to do with your pastry cutter, and after 5, 6, 8, 10 minutes of that, it gets pretty tiresome. So your food processor makes it so much easier. So you can take one of your bags, right out of the fridge, give it a quick little pulse to mix up the dry mixture, and then this is doubling as our refrigerator, even though it's just my cabinet. And then we take our fat. This is 10 tablespoons of butter right here. It's cold. So what would normally take 4 or 5 minutes doing it by hand, putting it in here, and in about 15 seconds, I've cut in the fat enough. Then we add our liquid from my refrigerator. And what, I spend like 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds here, and I have a mixture that's all ready to be made into my pie dough. So remember, it's a great labor saver, a great time saver, and really, if you haven't used your food processor to make pie pastry, I really suggest you try. And it works best, by the way, I've said this numerous times at the Pie Academy website, but it really works best on single crust batches of dough rather than double crust, unless you have a really large food processor. It does a better job of mixing if there's not too many ingredients inside the food processor. So let's put that aside and talk about hack number 4. Hack number 4 has to do with rolling. So, and I say let's have a big roll-a-thon. That's hack number 4. And what that's about is, okay, so, and by the way, you don't have to, if you make multiple batches of dough in your food processor at the same time, you don't have to wash out the food processor bowl. You just mix it, you shape it, and then go on to your next batch. So another thing I like to do to save time in my pie making process is I'll make multiple batches of dough at the same time. I'll shape them. I'll turn it out of here. I'll shape it into my disc, and then I'll wrap that up in plastic and put it in the refrigerator. And then I'll do it again for another batch, put that in the refrigerator, and I'll repeat that 4 or 5 times. And then I have 4 or 5 doughs all ready to go. And then what I like to do is, you need maybe about 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to do this. Take them all out one by one and roll them out and get them into your pie pan. And that way you've got all these doughs rolled ahead of time and into your pie pans and just waiting for you in the freezer. But it's a great way to consolidate your steps. Now, hack number 5, in order to do that, you're going to need pie pans. Now, for me, that's no problem because I have probably 50 or 60 different pie pans. But for a lot of people, they only have 2 or 3, pie pans that they really, really like. And they don't want to tie up those pie pans in the freezer because they might need them in the interim. So hack number 5 is reach for the foil. And what I mean is reach for the foil pies or pie pans. These, I used to be a real snob about these foil pie pans. I said nasty things about them for many, many years. I said they're flimsy, which they are. They're kind of flimsy. I said that they don't brown. There's not enough meat on these metal pans to really do a good job of holding the heat and spreading the heat around and doing a good job browning the crust. But the problem was when I changed my mind was, I make a lot of pies to give away. And you give these things, it's nice to give someone a pie as a gift. So you give these things away to somebody, and then, like 2 months later, you remember who you gave a pie or a pie pan to, and you got to call them up and track it down. It's just too much of a hassle. I'd rather just give somebody a pie and be done with it. So the best thing to do then is put them in foil. So let me teach you a little trick for baking these foil pans to get the best out of them. What I do is I take one of my really dark baking sheets like this. I line it with parchment because I always use parchment. And then I put let's pretend this has the pie shell in it. And then I bake the pie just like this on the lowest oven rack. And one of the things, there's a couple of things going on here. The dark pan will really generate a lot of heat right up into the crust. So you'll end up with a nice, nicely browned crust. If you start this pie in the middle of the oven, it's not going to, with a foil pan, it's not going to brown up nearly as nicely. And another thing that the baking sheet does, it gives some stability to the pan, because these pans are a little bit, they don't have much of a rim to grab, and they can be, especially when you have a hot pie in there, they can be a little wobbly, getting them in and out of the oven, and you don't want a hot pie that you're juggling with, trying to go in and out of the oven. So anyway, you put the pie on there, and you'll get you'll bake it on the bottom rack for at least 2/3 of the baking, and you'll get a nicely browned bottom crust. And I'm going to prove that to you because I baked a pie earlier. And I'm going to grab that pie. Just hang on just a second. It's in the refrigerator. I'm going to grab that pie and bring it out to show you just how nicely these bottom crusts can actually brown up. So I had thought about just cutting a piece out of this rather than doing what I'm about to do. But I'm actually going to upend the whole pie onto this so you can get a nice look. And I'm going to bring this in a little closer. And I wish for the best here, because this could be totally, I could totally bomb this and get blueberry pie all over me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this thing over, remove the pan, and give you a look at just how well this method works for browning that bottom crust. So there we go. Turned it right over. And what you see is a very nicely browned crust here. I don't have my microphone close enough to for you to actually hear this, but if you tap on this thing, I mean, it feels and looks nice and brown. So not to be concerned about not getting a nice brown crust. You know, a lot of people, and I used to say the same thing myself, you know, it's going to come out flabby, it's going to be underbaked or whatever. You can see this is not underbaked. This is very nicely done. I tell you, I love this idea of lining my pans ahead of time, because there's nothing more encouraging than to open your freezer and to see a stack of 4 or 5 of these pie shells already in the pie pan, just waiting for you to take one out and to make a quiche, or to make a wonderful, you know, a blueberry cherry pie like this one, or one of your favorite summer pies, anything like that. So that's it for today, and the hacks, the 5 hacks that you tuned in for. A couple of things I want to mention before I go. If you're not already a member of the Pie Academy, please go to thepieacademy.com and sign up. All you got to do is fill in a little form, and that way you'll be able to stay abreast of everything that's going on, the new courses that we're offering, the new events that we're holding, new recipes that I'm testing and posting. You'll be able to stay abreast of all of that. And by the way, while I'm mentioning courses, if you like this sort of instruction, if you like to see hands-on how to make great pies from start to finish, we have a couple of really good courses at the Pie Academy that you might be interested in. One is called the No More Tears Pie Pastry Course. And if you just Google that, No More Tears Pie Pastry Course, right at the top of the search results, you'll see a link to that. And the other, and that covers all the basics of making pastry and making a covered fruit pie. So, and we've had just wonderful feedback from our members who've taken that course and really have enjoyed it. We also have an entire course about cream pies. It's called Great American Cream Pies. And that you can go directly to that course. It's called greatamericancreampies.com and find out more there. If you love cream pies, you know, these great diner classics like chocolate cream pie or vanilla cream pie, banana cream pie, all of those pies are covered, and all sorts of variations. So I just wanted to let you know that. Finally, one other thing I wanted to tell you is please follow us on Instagram or Facebook, all those social media sites, because we're posting there whenever we have new content, and it's just a great way to stay abreast of what we're doing. So if you have any questions about anything I did today or anything about the Pie Academy, please just leave a comment below in the comment area, and I'll go back and I'll answer all the questions that I get. respond to your comments, and really look forward to hearing more from you. So thanks for joining us today. I hope this was helpful, and look forward to doing another one soon. You take care.